world order has been disrupted by ongoing conflicts and political standoffs in key geopolitical zones, such as Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Beyond these areas, there's growing chatter about a potential new war in the Far East Pacific. This oceanic region is rapidly becoming a battleground where Russia and China are positioning themselves against the United States and its Western allies. Naturally, the Pacific nations are very concerned about the current state of affairs. Taiwan, the Philippines, South Korea, and Japan, where North Korea recently launched a missile, are on high alert for potential aggressive moves by Russia and China. These countries maintain strong military and political alliances with the US, specifically designed to counter Russian and Chinese influence. However, the Pacific nations don't consider this alliance to be quite sufficient. Consequently, these countries are developing their own robust military defenses to address the rising threats posed by Russia and China. One of the key players is undoubtedly Japan. The Kuril Islands dispute with Russia, along with China's ambitions to establish a strong naval presence in the Sea of Japan, following its actions towards Taiwan, and North Korea's recent missile launches in the same waters, have pushed Tokyo to a critical point. Japanese defense experts believe that the real challenge will begin if Russia makes any moves on the Kuril Islands. The Kuril Islands issue, also referred to as the Northern Territories dispute, is a point of conflict between Japan and Russia regarding the ownership of 4 southern Kuril Islands. Tokyo aims to prevent Russia from exerting pressure in the Pacific through the dispute over the Kuril Islands. Should Japan fail to adequately respond to Russia, China and North Korea may very well seize the opportunity. Especially a strong alliance between Russia and China against Japan could put the government in Tokyo in a perilous situation from which it may not recover. Given all these risks, Tokyo is preparing for a potential conflict with Russia and also with China, one of the main actors in the Eastern Bloc. We will explore in greater detail how Japan is working to contain both Russia and China along its Pacific coastline. But before we delve deeper, please ensure you're subscribed to our channel, have notifications turned on, and give this video a like. Your support helps us bring you this critical content. Let's get started. First, let's analyze the current military strength of Japan. Despite its seemingly innocuous name, the Japan Self-Defense Forces is, in fact, one of the world's most powerful militaries. It boasts the 8th largest defense budget globally, a navy that outstrips the combined forces of France and the United Kingdom, more than 1,600 aircraft, and 4 flat-topped carriers. In addition, Japan has a sophisticated system for defending against incoming missiles, especially in the event of conflict with North Korea. But despite these capacities, Japan considers this insufficient to safeguard its interests. The Japanese Ministry of Defense is therefore actively seeking new interceptor technologies, such as cruise missiles capable of destroying enemy missiles before they're even launched. This strategy is primarily meant to prevent potential Russian missile attacks aimed towards the Kuril Islands. To that end, Japan has initiated the process by officially confirming its intent to purchase 78 Tomahawk missiles from the United States. This acquisition solidifies Japan's growing role in its own defense strategy in the Indo-Pacific region, specifically facing potential threats from both Russia and China. Deliveries of the missiles are slated for completion by March of 2028, by which time Japan will likely have significantly fortified its Pacific coast against Russian and Chinese threats. The Tomahawk is a long-range, precision-guided weapon deployed from both surface ships and submarines within the US military. While the range varies slightly with different versions of the missile, it is capable of hitting targets up to a distance of roughly 1,500 miles, or 2,500 kilometers. This range far exceeds the 300-mile range provided by the US Army's Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS, ballistic missiles. With these missiles, Japan can target Russian military assets and infrastructure at long distances. Japan can essentially intimidate Putin with its Tomahawk stockpile, especially in the Kuril Islands region, where a major dispute with Russia is ongoing. According to Raytheon, the defense firm that manufactures the missiles, the US and its allies have used the weapon more than 2,300 times in combat situations. Various versions of the Tomahawk exist, including the new Block 5 series, which the US has been developing in recent years to address potential issues with China. It's crucial for both Japan and Australia to have Tomahawk missiles in their arsenals. In addition to these missiles, Japan is implementing measures to safeguard its airspace against Russian and Chinese aircraft. Enhanced surveillance and response capabilities, coupled with advanced radar and aircraft, and Japan's enduring alliance with the United States, are intended to act as a deterrent to both the People's Republic of China and Russia. Recent events have highlighted Japan's need to have an effective air defense deterrent. In September of 2024, a Russian military surveillance aircraft entered Japanese airspace 3 times near the northern prefecture of Hokkaido. This prompted Tokyo to scramble F-15 and F-35 fighter jets. According to the Japanese Ministry of Defense, this violation followed an incident a month earlier where a Chinese surveillance plane violated Japanese airspace near the southwestern prefecture of Nagasaki. Beijing claimed that incident was a pure accident. Following Russia's incursions, Japan's defense minister, Minoru Kihara, stated that Japan is committed to remaining vigilant against such actions by China and Russia, including intrusions into the country's maritime borders. Minoru Kihara also pledged that Japan would take all possible measures to detect and counter these kinds of violations. The government views the defense of Hokkaido as a priority for Tokyo, due to the island's proximity to North Korea and Russia, and the importance of the surrounding sea for shipping. There is widespread investment by Japan in the region, focusing on space, air, and maritime surveillance technology. These efforts are crucial to establish a comprehensive awareness of the domain, allowing Japan to respond effectively to threats from Russia. According to the Japanese Defense White Paper of 2024, Russia is increasing its military presence in the Kuril Islands, near Hokkaido, an archipelago under Russian control, but claimed by Japan. This buildup includes upgrading infrastructure for Russian ground forces, deploying new fighter jets, coastal anti-ship missile systems, as well as conducting large-scale military exercises. To counter Russia's buildup, Japan has reinforced its air and sea defenses with constant surveillance. The Japan Air Self-Defense Force operates 28 radar sites and early warning aircraft to monitor Japanese airspace. The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force is conducting surveillance using P-3C aircraft, escort vessels, and other assets. Key territorial waters are protected by the JMSDF and the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force observation posts. Remember to subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from today? Don't forget to stick around to the end of the video, because we have some very important conclusions to draw together. On the other hand, the Tokyo government is also increasing its military spending in response to the pressure policies of Vladimir Putin. Japan is dramatically increasing its defense spending and amassing the military stockpiles needed for modern conflicts. For decades, Japan's defense spending had remained at or below 1% of its gross domestic product. Now, the government in Tokyo, led by Kishida, seeks to almost double defense spending to 2% in just 5 years. This would be the first time this kind of plan has been implemented since the end of World War II. The new year has also begun with clear indicators of increased military spending for Tokyo. The Japanese cabinet has approved a record $55 billion defense budget for 2025, as Japan is boosting its capacity to counterattack with long-range cruise missiles and has begun deploying Tomahawk missiles to address growing threats from North Korea, China, and Russia. This budget represents the 3rd year of Japan's 5-year defense investment program that was put in place as part of its national security strategy adopted in 2022. The allocation is part of a proposed national budget totaling more than $730 billion, which requires parliamentary approval. The budget also allocates $6 billion for a remote defense system, including long-range missiles, satellite constellations, and other weaponry. The purchase and integration of Tomahawk launch equipment on Aegis-class destroyers will cost a total of $11.4 million. Japan intends to invest another $3.37 billion to strengthen its missile defense system. This will encompass the procurement of interceptors and mobile reconnaissance radar for Okinawa, where over half of the roughly 50,000 U.S. troops stationed in Japan are based. As part of its national security strategy, Japan will increase its annual defense spending to about $63 billion, which would make it the 3rd largest defense spender globally, surpassed only by the US and China. Japan also seeks to strengthen its domestic defense industry through collaborative development projects and overseas sales. Japan is planning to invest $2 billion to build 3 multi-purpose compact destroyers in 2025 that will require just 90 crew members, which is less than half the crew size currently needed, thanks to automation and labor-saving design. Officials have said that the updated Mogami-class destroyers will be equipped with long-range missiles, enhanced anti-submarine capabilities, and high-stealth performance. The destroyers, being constructed by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, a Japanese defense company, are also bidding for Australia's C-3000 frigate project. Japan's defense minister, General Nakatani, said in November of 2024 that the project would deepen cooperation between Australia and Japan and increase Japan's warship capabilities. These two countries have developed stronger relationships in recent years in light of the growing threats coming from China. Japan, alongside Italy and the United Kingdom, is developing a next-generation fighter jet for deployment in 2035 and has allocated $690 million from the 2025 budget for the project. The United Kingdom is taking additional steps to ensure Japan's security in the Pacific region. To achieve this, the UK and Japan will hold routine military exercises in the Indo-Pacific from 2025 to increase security and develop the ability of each country's armed forces to work together effectively. These exercises will also involve the United States. The aim is to create a more secure environment for Russia's far eastern maritime areas. Therefore, it is expected that the exercises will extend into the North Pacific Ocean. For the UK and Japan, military exercises in this region are of paramount importance. The UK is already conducting multiple exercises in the area, where HMS Spey and HMS Tamar are permanently stationed. Next year, the Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales will deploy to the region, heading up a carrier strike group that will conduct a series of operations and exercises with partner nations, including a port visit in Japan. With such operations, HMS Prince of Wales is following the successful deployment of its sister ship, HMS Queen Elizabeth, to the region in 2021. This support from the United Kingdom will strengthen Japan's position against Russia. It is often overlooked, particularly in the West, that Japan is Russia's neighbor. The UK has factored this into their strategic planning. Japan has not shared a land border with Russia for 79 years. Yet Japan has consistently confronted Russia along the Sea of Japan and the Sea of Okhotsk, and was at the forefront of the Cold War in Asia until 35 years ago. Now, as the geopolitical conflict between Russia and the West is resurfacing, Japan finds itself once again on the front lines. For Tokyo, the Pacific is indeed a region that requires close attention. The submarine capabilities of the Russian Pacific Fleet are steadily growing, with special emphasis on the modernization of its nuclear ballistic missile submarines. In response, the Japanese military has decided to conduct joint military exercises with the United Kingdom in the Pacific in 2025. However, the problem for Japan was not only Russia's growing number of submarines. Satellite images have indicated that Russia's nuclear ballistic missile submarine fleet has become considerably more active in recent years. The perceived risk was that increased Russian submarine activity north of Japan might strain the deterrent resources of the US-Japanese alliance in the face of the Chinese threat. The US and Japan, together with their Indo-Pacific partners, have been trying to balance China's military strength, and now with Russia's renewed activity, this strategy is being broadened northwards. The US is also aware of the increasing Russian threats. Washington also understands that Beijing supports Moscow in the Pacific. For this reason, the US and Japan are pursuing a more deterrent strategy regarding their military bases. Most recently, Tokyo announced that it would establish a permanent joint headquarters in Japan to command the Japanese self-defense forces during any crisis. If fully implemented, this would equip Japan with its own form of combatant command and would simplify coordination with US forces in the event of a major emergency. In addition, a US Marine Corps coastal regiment is planned to be stationed in Okinawa. This is set to be operational by 2025. This unit will be capable of carrying out maritime interdiction operations, as it will include both an infantry battalion and a battery of anti-ship missiles equipped with the Marine Corps Medium-Range Missile Launcher. Such a unit will likely operate out of Okinawa, but could also be based around Ishigaki, Yonaguni, and Miyako, thus providing enhanced capabilities close to the Taiwan Strait. Meanwhile, the U.S. Congress intends to create a new Joint Force headquarters in the Indo-Pacific to do the same for American military forces. These changes will obviously take time to fully implement. However, once in place, they will provide the U.S.-Japan alliance with the foundation for a wartime command and control structure. In fact, unlike NATO or the U.S.-South Korea military alliance, Washington and Tokyo have never had a truly unified command structure. This was clearly evident during Operation Tomodachi in 2011, when the Allies initially faced difficulties in responding to the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. However, things are changing today. Establishing joint headquarters is the first step toward creating a joint and unified command that can offer Allied wartime command and control, even under the most critical conditions. Japan and the United States are also acting in this manner. The main purpose of the alliance is to remind Russia of a bit of history. Nearly a century ago, one of history's greatest naval battles took place in the Tsushima Strait, where the Japanese Navy defeated the Russian Baltic Fleet. However, the role of the Tsushima Strait during the Cold War is not widely known. Tsushima was the passage for the Soviet fleet sailing from Vladivostok to the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Just as Russian Admiral Zinovy Rozhestvensky had to navigate through Tsushima during the Russo-Japanese War, Soviet submarine captains had to do the same. Nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines were no exception. Submarines from the Soviet Northern Fleet made various efforts to avoid underwater hydrophone systems, as witnessed by American and Soviet submariners. The same occurred in the waters around Japan. Soviet submarines would typically shut down their engines very close to the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces observation posts in the Tsushima Strait, and then glide quietly into the East China Sea using the ocean currents. Soviet corvettes were always stationed in the strait, and when nuclear submarines would pass by, they would start their engines to overwhelm Japan's underwater hydrophones. On the other hand, it was possible to reach the Pacific Ocean from Kamchatka without navigating through narrow straits. Consequently, the Pacific Fleet submarine units gradually established this peninsula as their home base. Almost every month, a Yankee-class submarine would travel from here to its patrol area, which was known as the Yankee Box, some 2,000 to 2,500 kilometers from the west coast of the United States. By the mid-1970s, Delta I, Delta II, and Delta III class submarines began to appear in the Pacific Fleet. These submarines were armed with long-range R-29 and R-29R ballistic missiles. The Delta-class submarines no longer needed to sneak across the Pacific towards waters off the U.S. mainland. Instead, the strategy was to retreat to waters closer to the Soviet Union, where they would find support from friendly forces. The Delta-class also had an additional advantage. While the Yankee-class had to travel at speeds as high as 15 knots when heading towards the coast, the Delta-class could travel at the slower speed of just 4 to 8 knots. This greatly improved their chances of survival. Shortly after the first Delta-class submarine was deployed in 1974, the Soviet Union began fortifying the area around the Sea of Okhotsk. The initial step was the deployment of ground forces. The 18th Machine Gun Artillery Division was created and sent to the southern Kuril Islands for the first time in 20 years. These islands and Sakhalin Island were equipped with surface-to-ship missiles and air defense systems. Alongside these developments, a massive caldera on Simashir Island was converted into a submarine base. Today, Russia dreams of re-establishing its military dominance in the Pacific, but Japan stands firmly in the way of Russia's Pacific ambitions. Japan is not only employing its national military resources, but also working alongside regional partners, especially the United States and Western Alliance forces. All of this collective power creates a powerful barrier between Russia and China, both of whom wish to establish a more autocratic order in the Pacific. In short, based on all the actions we've just explored, it is clear that Japan cares far too much about the Pacific to simply leave it in the hands of Russia and China. We will now proceed to conclusions. Okay, let's discuss the conclusions. First, it's clear that the Pacific region is becoming a significant area of geopolitical tension. Japan is taking proactive steps to strengthen its defense capabilities, and deter potential threats from Russia and China. The buildup of Japan's military, its focus on missile technology, and the establishment of closer ties with the United States and other Western allies signals a clear strategy to maintain regional stability and prevent any unilateral action by Russia or China. Second, the historical context is extremely important for understanding the current situation. The echoes of the Russo-Japanese War and the Cold War highlight that this is not just a new issue, but an ongoing historical pattern of power struggles and strategic positioning. The fact that the Tsushima Strait has been a strategic location for decades shows that geography and historical precedent play a major role in current military planning. Third, the growing collaboration between Japan, the United States, and other allies shows that there is no lone strategy. These nations are working together to achieve a unified command and control structure, enhance their ability to operate together, and deter Russian and Chinese aggression. Finally, all of these changes and developments indicate that the Pacific region could become a major site of conflict in the future if tensions continue to escalate.